Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. I'm delighted to be joined here by Seamus Brady from Monclithe to review the weekend's action. Two very eventful semi-finals, two semi-finals that very much went down to the wire. Obviously, Dublin and Kerry booking themselves into the All-Ireland final. Probably very much maybe what we would have anticipated before the weekend semi-finals, but it is Dublin and Kerry who progress, albeit maybe a lot closer than what people expected. Meath obviously won the Tailteann Cup as well, so we'll be running through that game. Big result, obviously, for Meath, picking up major silverware for the first time in a long time. And, of course, we'll be running through the ladies' football action as well. Obviously, Kerry knocking out the All-Ireland champions. And, of course, Dublin getting a big win against Donegal. I suppose, first of all, Seamus, how's things with yourself as a Dublin fan? How does it feel that we're back in the All-Ireland final first since 2020, as I was saying to someone the other day? Like, it's, you know, it kind of sounds mad saying first since 2020, considering before that we were literally in the All-Ireland final 6 years in a row. But yeah, how does it feel to be back in the final?
Yeah, it feels great. And yeah, thanks for having me on again, Aaron. Delighted to be back. But yeah, like, for example, like myself and Luke started our page in 2021, so we've never actually got an opportunity to preview an All-Ireland final with Dublin taking part. So this is going to be our first time to actually do it. Hopefully we can keep any potential bias out of it. But I'm very delighted. Like, two great victories for Dublin over the weekend over Monaghan. I knew that they were going to bring it, and they did. And we battled through that one. Donegal as well on the ladies' side, fantastic victory there. Donegal actually beat us last year in the quarterfinals. And to think that we were going away to Ballybofey to face them, I was actually very nervous about that game. 3-12 to 6 points. Like, what a fantastic performance. And so, yeah, happy all around. Fantastic action. Like, Kerry-Derry was an awesome game. Instant classic, in my opinion. Meath winning the Tailteann Cup is a strange game to analyse. A lot of weird stuff happened in that game, especially the goal. But all around, just a cracking weekend of Gaelic football.
It definitely was. It definitely was. And I suppose it's mad to think, isn't it? Like, we obviously had a much longer route to the All-Ireland final this year, obviously with the group stages and everything else. And you'd round robins, you'd some teams losing 2-3 games, and just a long, long way to the final. But in the end, it's Dublin and Kerry in the final, like what it somewhat always is. You know, when you look through history, like it's you know, I think only twice since, you know, the early 2000s has Dublin or Kerry not been in a final, like one of them not been in a final. So kind of mad to think, like, despite changing the championship structures and everything else, we still have the two big hitters in the final in 2 weeks' time.
Well, that's it. It's as Matthew said on my podcast yesterday. It's the El Clasico of Gaelic games. It's the two that consistently are probably up there with the best. Like, even when they're going through their barren periods, even when Kerry weren't winning All Irelands in the early 90s, even when Dublin weren't winning All Irelands in the noughties, still winning provincial titles, still getting to the Final Four. They're always at the top table. They're always one of the best teams in Ireland, if not the outright two best. And seeing these two face off now in a final is going to be huge. Because you're looking at it thinking, for this Kerry team to be considered in the same bracket as Kerry teams that have gone before them, they want to beat Dublin in the final. Like, make no mistake about it. David Clifford, Shawnee O'Shea, I know that they beat Dublin in the semi-final last year, but there is no team that they would rather beat in an All-Ireland final than Dublin. Sorry, where did I cut out there?
I think it was myself, actually. I think my internet just completely folded there, so I'm back on my hotspot there. Great timing. The internet's always doing it. I thought we were over this, but anyway, you were saying.
Yeah, I was just saying that there's nobody that Kerry would rather beat in an All-Ireland final than Dublin. Like, I know that they had the semi-final victory last year, but for Shawnee O'Shea, for David Clifford, there's nobody that they'd rather beat in an All-Ireland final than Dublin. They would have looked at the 70s teams and how they beat Dublin in All-Ireland finals. They would have looked at the noughties teams, how they beat Dublin in semi-finals. They want to also beat Dublin in the final. Make no mistake about it. It's the same way that for Dublin, there's nobody you would have rather to get in the 2019 final than Kerry.
Yeah. And like, I don't want to jump too ahead to that final, obviously, because we certainly will preview it and everything else. And there'll certainly be plenty to discuss when it comes around. But even like looking ahead to it, it almost feels like it's such a big moment possibly in the rivalry of Kerry Dublin. Like if Kerry can get the win over Dublin, make it back-to-back All-Irelands, like it's a big shift, isn't it? Because then all of a sudden you'd have to say like definitively Kerry are the dominant force in Gaelic football. And for Dublin, like to have lost to Kerry in back-to-back seasons, especially in a year where they have all the big boys back like Mannion, McCaffrey, Pat Gilroy, as Jack O'Connor was alluding to in his post-match press conference, like Dublin have brought back the cavalry. So if Kerry could still go and beat them, like that would, all of a sudden you would look at it and think like Kerry could go on and dominate here and Dublin might have to make up the ground, because that's how it started originally, like 2011, 2013, like it was very, very close for a long time. But then Dublin just started to get the hop on Kerry once they broke that voodoo. And you feel like if Kerry could beat Dublin in a couple of weeks' time, then maybe all of a sudden they'll have the hop on Dublin for the next couple of years.
Yeah, and it's absolutely correct that you're talking about it could be defining, because it's actually reminding me a lot of the 2013-2015 games between the two teams. Like the 2013 All-Ireland semi-final between Kerry and Dublin and the 2015 final between Kerry and Dublin. Kerry were All-Ireland champions in 2015. Like they were defending champions. They got to that final against Dublin. And obviously that was the start of Dublin's 6 in a row. But like I'll take it to 2013. I know Kerry won it in 2014, the year after. But then Dublin got right back on and dominated after that. But it was very similar if you actually look at it. Like the 2015 Kerry team and this Dublin team now. Yes, the Kerry team was in transition. Yes, they were starting to bring in the likes of, or they had started to bring in the likes of Paul Murphy, Shane Enright, people like that into the team, Peter Crowley. But that was still a Kerry team that was very much dominated by the likes of Colin Cooper, by the likes of Aidan O'Mahony. And it was a Kerry team that was coming towards the end of their journey. Like the likes of Darren O'Sullivan that were still going strong. Paul Galvin played in the 2015 final as well. Kieran Donaghy came in as well. And you had Dublin on the other side with Brian Fenton in his first year in the team. Like players like Kieran Kilkenny, Jack McCaffrey, who were so young back in 2015. I think they're only 20 years of age or something. And how similar is it now to what is going on with Kerry and Dublin? Only the roles are now reversed. You've got potentially Dublin starting to, hit the twilight of this team. James McCarthy, Michael Fitzsimons, Stephen Cluxton, players like that. How much longer do they have left in the tank? Whereas Kerry are still a very young side. Like David Clifford, Shawnee O'Shea, they're not even hit their peak yet, which is terrifying when you watch Clifford's performance against McCaig yesterday. Yeah. But it's actually very similar. Like it's one team potentially at the end of its era, but can they still take an All-Ireland off to the team that are going to be the team to beat, in my opinion, over the next few years?
Yeah, it is very interesting. Obviously, like there'll be plenty of content obviously coming out in the build up to the final and everything else. And Hans is saying here his score prediction is 1-13 apiece and go into extra time, but I doubt it will go to penalties. I'm pretty sure if it's level after extra time, it will actually be a replay. So look,
very extra time in an All-Ireland final.
I'm not too sure. I think there might be extra time in the first game, and then if it's level, I think it goes to a replay. And then the second game, I'm not entirely sure. If you were to have an All-Ireland final settle on penalties, I'm not entirely sure if that would go down well. But sure, look, we'll certainly discuss that obviously when the time comes. I suppose we'll start with Kerry then. Obviously, it was them who got the better of Derry by a scoreline of 117 to 115. And look, it was, do you know what? Like a lot of people coming into it were expecting that Derry were probably going to fold and Kerry were going to win the game quite comfortably, and the class of Clifford and Derry would just sit in defensively and Kerry would just pick them apart. But geez, what a game this was. Like Derry went for Kerry's throat right from the get-go. They get that early goal from Garrett McKinless. Kerry then go down the other end and get an instant response with Gavin White. It was back and forth stuff, and Jesus, Derry must be waking up. Like I'm sure they'd be feeling sore physically, especially Shane McGuigan. but mentally as well, they must be thinking like, what an opportunity this was that they missed, because like going into those final 10 minutes before that Stephen O'Brien wins that free, Kerry were there for the taking, and we could have easily been sitting here talking about a Dublin Derry final in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, it's just, you're right. It was there for them. Now, the only thing that I will say, and I said this to you at the start, I said it to you off air, this Kerry team has now done something that, in my opinion, the Kerry team in the 2000s didn't do. And that was they won a game when a team had them by the throat coming down the home stretch. Like Joe Brolly, there's that infamous clip of Joe Brolly and Pat Spillane where Joe Brolly's saying that Kerry team had yet to beat anybody that was staring them in the face for 70 minutes. Yeah. And like, they didn't. The truth is that they didn't. Like, they lost 3 finals to Tyrone. They lost to Armagh. The finals that they beat against Mayo and Cork folded in those finals. 2010, Down took them out. 2011, Dublin beat them in the final. 2012, Donegal took them out. Like, they were so talented that, as he said in that piece, cruise control was enough to burn off 80-90% of teams. But when they hit the 1%, the 1% usually tended to beat them because they were used to going to war. Like, that Donegal team were used to going to war. Tyrone were used to going to war. And they managed to get the better of them. Derry are used to going to war. And they took that game into the trenches. And Kerry also were ready for war. And they got the win. That is hugely significant in their mentality going forward. Because that game is far different to other games that they've had in the past. It's one thing to beat Mayo in the All-Ireland quarterfinal last year, and one thing to beat Tyrone in this year's quarterfinal when everything you touch turns to gold. It's another thing to battle and scrape your way to victory. Find a way. The real champions find a way, and Kerry found a way. You think about it, like, there was a while where they were looking like they were on the ropes. Graham O'Sullivan ballooned the shot wide. Tony Brosnan hit the post and it went wide, and that was like 2 or 3 wides in a row for Kerry. And they went a good chunk without scoring. I don't have the exact number, but was it something like 17 minutes without scoring they went?
Yeah, I think
like they looked like they were 100% there for the taking. But then in the home stretch, when the game was there to be won, Kerry scored 5 unanswered points in a period where Derry didn't score. That's the difference.
Yeah, and I suppose Liam is a good commentator. He's saying the last 10 minutes are the most important. Dublin didn't win so many close ties by accident. Managing those final moments count for 90% of securing a victory. Can't just perform for 65 minutes. And yeah, look, and you could probably talk about both games in a similar breath there. Like, obviously, Dublin and Monaghan was, 2-3 points going into the final couple of minutes. Like, Monaghan were essentially a kick of a ball or, a goal away from possibly leveling the game, obviously, before Dean Rock gets that goal. And like, that goal probably did flatter Dublin ever so slightly. But like, it is those final moments. It's those final minutes that separates the great teams from the good teams. And like, when it comes to All-Ireland semi-finals, like, you can look at refereeing decisions, you can look at this, you can look at that, you can look at missed opportunities. But ultimately, it is those final minutes, and it's the smallest of margins. Like, it's a thin line between success and failure. You only have to ask the Mayo lads, like, the questions on that, because they've been there in finals where they look like they're about to get over the line, and Dublin, Donegal, Tyrone would drag it back from the dead and turn it around. And that's it's just there is a thin line, and at the end of the day, only one team can win an All-Ireland out of the 32 teams that compete, and it comes down to a whisker, really, and that's probably what it will come down to in 2 weeks' time as well.
Yeah, and it came down to a whisker in this game as well. You think the first one that jumps to my mind is Garrett McKinless' shot. That was well saved by Shane Ryan. Very well saved by Shane Ryan. That goes into the back of the net. That would have put Derry 5 points in front. And like, are they going to lose the game from there? Not in my opinion. Shane Ryan saves that. He saves Kerry's championship season. Then on top of that, Kieran McFall hit a wide, which could have put them 3 ahead, and it was a wide that he would normally have scored. Then Lachlan Murray as well, one that I couldn't believe when I was watching. Oran Lynch kicked the ball into Lachlan Murray, and instead of putting his hand up and taking the mark, he took another step, took the shot, and was blocked down. I was saying, take your mark. If you take that mark, you go 3 points in front. You take that mark, you go 3 points in front. And then it's a whole different ball game then, being 3 points in front as opposed to being 2 points in front. It makes the team start to think that they need to get a goal. It's a whole different psychological thing. and they were just never able to get that extra score to go in front. And as I said, as that comment said from Liam, when it came down to the crunch, Kerry found something. They found something, an extra gear, and scored 5 unanswered points in a period where Derry didn't score. And that's what ultimately made the difference. And like some of the performances, again, David Clifford just awesome, like throughout the game, an absolute leader. And like just on the other side for Derry, I was hugely impressed with them because the last 2 times that they've come to Croke Park and played top opposition, they've just been schooled. Like that's the honest truth. They got schooled by Galway and they got schooled by Dublin, and I didn't think that they would get annihilated by Kerry, but I didn't think that they'd come this close to beating them because I thought that, look, their style in the past hasn't translated well to Croke Park. They came prepared this time and they were really, really good. And after watching that game, I'm thinking, yeah, I believe that they'd win an All-Ireland next year. I believe that they could win an All-Ireland next year, having seen how close they came to beating Kerry. There are a couple of players off. Like, imagine if the likes of Callum Brown, Anton Tohill come back from Australia. Like, they'd make a huge difference if they came back. Be interesting to see what Kieran Mina does. Does he stick on now as manager? I know he came in, obviously, off the back of all that madness that went on at the start of the season. Will he stick in? Will they get Anthony Tohill? It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, and look, I think Meath is more than claimed his place to take the job. Like, I think, look, Derry were closer to winning an All-Ireland semi-final this year than they were last year, and you could argue they're playing a better team in the process this year as well. Like, and you said, like, there's probably been a lot of people that have wrote Derry off and said, look, they're a great provincial team, they're great, at playing that style of football, but will that cut it when it comes to the big stages of the All-Ireland? But as you said there, like, they just threw the shackles off. They went for it. They went for Kerry's throat, and on another day, like that chance probably goes in for Garrett McKinless. There's other opportunities. There's one that's cleared off the line as well. A couple of other half chances, like McGuigan, that last moment. Obviously, he mishits the ball, puts it over the bar. If he floats it in, you just never know. Like, it's a game of fine margins. On another day, Derry could have nicked it, and that's why you'd have to say going into next year, conveyor belt of minor players coming through as well. It might take a while before they make the breakthrough, but good few under 20 lads obviously have come into the side. McAvoy, Lakeland Murray, a few others. Like, they're good. They're good enough, in my opinion, to obviously beating Dublin or Kerry. They're the big two. But anyone else, Derry have their number, and certainly going into next season, like they'll be looked at a little bit differently. I think. Like, I always looked at them as a serious contender, but I know a lot of other people were quick to probably dismiss them. But you're looking at them now and thinking, you couldn't write them off going into next year. I know it's a long time away, but like you couldn't discount them after what they've shown this year.
Yeah, because they've shown it now. And they've shown an ability to go down to the wire with the All-Ireland champions. You can't discount that. Once a team shows you that they have that in their locker, they can do it. And it was one of those things where I don't want to use any, but I remember you were doing a piece where, this is just an example, no, you were doing a piece where you were saying how Roscommon could be dark horses for the All-Ireland, and then it was, well, why don't people think that? Why consistently when Roscommon beat Mayo and consistently when they beat Galway, why then are they not considered All-Ireland contenders versus Galway and Mayo? So, well, because in an All-Ireland semi-final or in an All-Ireland final, Galway have taken the All-Ireland champions to the wire. Mayo have taken the All-Ireland champions to the wire. Roscommon against Dublin and Croke Park was the first time I'd ever seen Roscommon come to Croke Park, play a big team and not get obliterated. So that's why I was a little bit interested by them this season, because I was like, okay, they're doing something different this year. And then, well, it didn't end well. But if you get my point on that, it's like once you've shown an ability to go to the end of the ends of the earth with the top teams, then I consider you All-Ireland contenders for the next season. Once you've shown that you can beat them. And Derry could have beaten Kerry. Like, make no mistake about it. If McKinless' shot goes in the back of the net, I think Derry win. I think they were that close.
Yeah. They were. Like, and you could have argued in that moment, he could have put the ball over the bar, made it a 3-point game. It's a tough one, though, because it's one of them.
He could have, but if he puts it in the net, they're through.
Yeah.
I know I would have gone for it.
It's worth the risk, isn't it?
It's 100% worth the risk, because you look at it, right, and you're in McKinless's shoes and you get through on goal, you're going for goal.
He's already scored a goal as well, so he's got
He's
that.
already scored. Of course he's going to go for it. And you look at how quick and how easy David Clifford can just whip over the points. Just bang. Literally skids on the ground, picks it up and sticks it over. McKinless is probably in that moment thinking, why would I go for the points when Clifford can just swing over a point at ease and cancel it out? They didn't get a goal chance like that for the rest of the game. As clear cut a goal chance as that. So I think he was right to go for it. And there's the whole argument about, should he have taken a point? But that's hindsight. If he sticks it in the back of the net, we are talking about a Derry versus Dublin All-Ireland final. And instead of saying he should have put it over the bar, we're saying, what a finish by Garrett McKinless, the bravery to take that on. I think he was right to go for it.
Yeah, no, I think he was as well. Like, I think when you get a goal scoring opportunity like that against a team like Kerry, where especially in a moment like that, it's a knockout blow. And Kerry looked on the ropes at that point anyway. They were struggling to create chances. They were hitting shots wide, and they looked like for the first time probably in the game, and possibly since they've won the All-Ireland last year, you thought they're on the ropes here. Like, it's going to take something different for them to get over the line. But look, as you said, you have to give them a huge amount of credit. Look, O'Brien buys that free. Is it a free? It's a bit soft, you would argue, but look, he gets it. Sometimes you need a bit of luck in these big games. Kerry obviously get their luck there. But to be fair, Derry were still winning after that by a point, and Kerry kicked on. They got Clifford on the ball, got him on the score in big moments. Stephen O'Brien kicks the point that puts Kerry in front on his weaker foot, and you have to give Kerry credit because it's tough. Like they say, when the going gets tough, the tough get going, and that's what happened with Kerry. Like it was very difficult for them in that period of time. Most teams would have folded right there, but Kerry showed a serious amount of bottle to turn it around. And for me, they've I know, like you would say, they need to go on and beat Dublin in 2 weeks to prove that they're a great team. But like if Kerry do win in 2 weeks' time, they'll look back at this and we'll look back and think like, this Kerry team, they've some amount of bottle.
Yeah, they are a great team. They're already a great team, in my opinion. It's like Clifford is probably the best player I've seen. Like, I don't think he's the greatest of all time yet, but at peak, I've never seen a better Gaelic footballer. Like, he's just a prototype for a forward. He's unstoppable. And a few of the points he kicked yesterday, do you know when you see someone kick a point and you watch it and you're like, Jesus Christ, how do you stop that? He got one off McCaig in the first half. It was the one to tie it up at 1-4 each, which incredibly, all 10 of the first scores of the game came from play. But yeah, I'm getting sidetracked there. Like, going back to them, yeah, like I wasn't even necessarily saying that they need to beat Dublin to be considered a great team, but I think they're already a fantastic team. But it's the type of thing of, I think they personally would love nothing more than to beat Dublin in an All-Ireland final.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was my point finished.
Oh, yeah. Well, sorry, I thought I might have lost you there again, or my internet might have cut out. But yeah, no, I think so. Like, I think to be fair, like I think they're already a great team. Like, I think that goes without saying. But I mean, like a truly great team. Like the absolute great sort of limit up here.
Well,
like,
by Kerry's standards, they
Yeah.
have to go and win at least 3.
Yeah.
Like, they have to.
Yeah.
Because the Kerry teams in the past won 3, 4. Like, winning 1 for Kerry, if you win 1 out of this team, that's a failure. If you only win 1 All-Ireland with David Clifford, Sean O'Shea, Paul Gainey, Stephen O'Brien, they won't consider that a success. You have to go and win more than 1.
No, it's a golden era of a team. Like, it's a golden generation of a team, and when you have these players, when you have a golden generation, you need to capitalize on it. And to be fair, Dublin obviously done that. Winning the 6 in a row. And to be fair, we probably had a conveyor belt of a few great teams. The team from sort of 2011, 2013, and a lot of those lads obviously stuck around during the 6 in a row spell. And then you had the likes of Fenton, Kilkenny, McCaffrey, Conn obviously eventually coming in to the side as well, just to add that extra bit of firepower when some of the other lads started to slow down. But But yeah, look, from like Clifford was phenomenal as well, wasn't he? Like 9 points, absolutely outstanding. And like, is there an argument though that Kerry are very, very reliant on him? Like, I suppose they probably are, but at the same time, he's that good. Like, you've seen what he was doing with McCaig. It's like, is he good enough nearly to drag Kerry to an All Ireland? Even if, like, I know Sean O'Shea came good towards the end of the game, Stephen O'Brien made an impact in fairness, and a few other lads stood up. But like in the first half, Kerry were struggling to get a lot of their players in the game, and it felt like Clifford was nearly just carrying them by himself. And like, is he good enough to do that in the final again? 2 weeks, do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. He's fantastic.
Is that enough to give Kerry the All Ireland? Just him doing the business.
Not just him. I think he will play 80% of the part, but he will need Sean O'Shea, Paul Ganey to chip in with a few, because Dublin will have a lot going down the other end. Cormac Costello, Con O'Callaghan. Be interesting to see if Pascal starts actually, but I know we'll get on to that. Yeah, I think David will have him having a big performance is absolutely crucial. It's absolutely crucial when you're talking about him carrying Kerry. I think it's more of the point of like, every time they give him the ball, he scores. So why would you not give him the ball as often as you can? Like that type of thing.
Yeah.
If he was injured, I think we would see better displays out of other Kerry forwards. And I think we would see the best of other Kerry forwards. But he is the best. So if I had the ball and I was looking into my Kerry forward line and they're all running, who am I going to kick the ball to? David Clifford. And he usually scores when he gets the ball. So I think that's where the kind of argument of Kerry being a one-man team comes from. It's just that they have an obvious best player. And I think that's something that is different between Dublin and Kerry. Like, I think Dublin in the past, you would have looked at Con O'Callaghan and you would have said, like, he's the guy we have to stop. We would have looked at Bernard Brogan, he's the guy we have to stop. Dublin this year are odd. They have a new main man every game. Like, it was Colin Pascal against Mayo. It was Cormac Costello in the semi-final. It'll be interesting to see who it is in the final now.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, Kerry probably do have, between Kerry and Dublin, probably do have the better forward. Do you know what I mean? And Clifford, like, he probably is the best player, best forward available, but Dublin probably just have more to supplement. You know, they've more sort of moving parts. But yeah,
I think honestly, if I was to make a forward line out of the two forward lines, I'd go 3 and 3. I'd go Paddy Clifford, Sean O'Shea, and David Clifford from Kerry, and I'd probably go Con Costello and Kieran Kilkenny from Dublin.
Yeah. No, like, I mean, look, who knows? We might do maybe a combined 15 or something ahead of the final or something like that. Might be something fun to do. But yeah, like, I suppose just running through a few comments here. Liam says on the free, on Stephen O'Brien, soft free, but Derry were still ahead. You need to push on in these situations. Conceding that free didn't mean they needed to collapse. Those are the championship minutes. And Meadman says success starts with underage success. Derry always had great minor and under 20 teams the past few years, and the supply hasn't stopped. They have the potential to win the All-Ireland in the next few years. Tom says, I'll be the first to admit I didn't think Derry were All-Ireland material. They proved me wrong. They should have won that game yesterday. A few comments about Monaghan. We'll certainly get onto that in a moment. But Shane says here, I've seen some people say McQuillan handed Kerry the game. He was brutal for both sides. If not more so for Kerry, he just isn't a good referee. And the fact he's still getting big games is a disgrace. Maybe thoughts on some of the decisions and everything else. Obviously, plenty of chatter on Twitter. Obviously, the incident with Shane Ryan and McGuigan, where Ryan sort of plants him with his backside, and then a few other sort of instances here as well. McGuigan getting plenty of hits and heavy challenges and everything else. I mean, what were your thoughts or your take on it?
Yeah, he made some interesting decisions. I'm not going to go out on a whim and say that he was terrible, but he definitely struggled at stages to ref the game. The Shane Ryan one was the main one where I was like, what? how has he let that one go? Considering the other stuff that he's called. Like, how's he calling a tug on Stephen O'Brien and then Shane McGuigan nearly gets knocked out by Shane Ryan, who did 100% turn his hip into the collision. He jumped in a way that I'm going to catch this ball and I'm going to flatten you. He did what a goalkeeper would do if that ball was in his penalty box. And I've seen goalkeepers get in trouble for that in the past. Do you remember Paddy O'Rourke getting sent off for Meath against Westmeath when he laid off a hand pass and then jumped into Kieran Martin? Yeah. He got a straight red card for that. Now, I'm not saying that should have been a red card at all. It shouldn't have been. But it should have been a free. It should have been a free. And the other thing as well, when you're looking at it, did Shane McGuigan just get really unlucky and was hit 3 times really, really hard? Or was he targeted? Like, because it's like, I genuinely believe that that's what he said to Jack O'Connor at the end of the game. Like, the two of them were having words at the end of the game, and it was, in my opinion, here's what I think happened. He gets that free at the end of the game. It's clear he's supposed to float the ball into the box to Conor Glass and hope that maybe, someone gets a fist on it and ends up in the net. Instead, almost muscle memory takes over and he kicks it over the bar. And he's probably really, really frustrated with himself. And Jack O'Connor probably came up and said, "Hey, look, man, like, go again next year." And he probably thought, "You've sent Jason Foley on to me. You've sent and they've been beating me up for the whole game. And now you're coming over saying, hard luck, well done, after I've just messed up that free." And he probably just said something to him. Like, what, you feel happy playing dirty or something like that. And the truth is it goes on with every top forward. That's just, sadly, that's part of our game. If you're a top forward, you better believe you're going to get a defender who's going to come on to you just to beat you up. And that's the treatment that McGuigan got. And you look at the other side, like David Clifford probably gets that more than anybody else every game he plays. And he doesn't complain about it. So, yeah, it happens. But to go back to Joe McQuillan, I know I went way off there. But to go back to Joe McQuillan, he made a couple of decisions that I liked a lot. Like the period where Kerry had a black card, and then all of a sudden, conveniently, Jason Foley has to get, a doctor to look at him and all this. And you're watching the game thinking, yeah, here we go. And it's not even, every team does that. Every single team does that. Every team. Dublin do that.
Kind of happened in the Dublin game as well. Paddy Small, wasn't it? Who went down.
Of course, yeah. Of course. Everybody does it. And immediately McQuillan gave a throw ball instead. You're taking too long. Grant. I'm like, yes, finally. Somebody does something about this. It's gas that they don't just stop the clock, isn't it?
Yeah. They should do, like,
okay, he's injured. Let's stop the sin bin clock to make sure you're out for 10 minutes. It's gas the way that it's such an easy loophole through it.
Yeah, no, they'll have to do something about that now, like, because obviously we've seen last year with Evan Comerford sort of rolling around on the pitch for a long time during the Dublin and Kerry game, and Nicky Quaid a couple of weeks ago, and
magic contact lens.
Yeah, like, and to be fair, I think Paddy Small might have went down before the black card, but did he know the black card was already coming? I don't know. Maybe he probably did, to be fair. Like,
on McQuillan's general performance, then, like, I've seen a lot of people going at him. There were a couple of decisions for both teams that he really should have given. Like, there was one in particular where Kerry broke and Derry fella clotheslined him, and it just wasn't given as a free, and it got given as a free to Derry instead. There were other ones as well that were just confusing. And I haven't seen him ref a top game in a few years now. So I was surprised when I saw him. I was like, oh, McQuillan's back. Okay. But yeah, he's definitely got a lot of abuse for himself. And I would say, look, don't give him abuse. I think I genuinely would be an advocate for having 2 referees, particularly in hurling. The game moves too fast. You can't see everything. And I'd be, do you know how in the international rules they have one ref for one half of the field and one ref for another half of the field? I'd be thinking, particularly for hurling, to do something like that, because I don't think you understand how hard it is to referee a game like that when everybody's at it. Make no mistake about it. Like, people feeling sorry for footballers and stuff like that. Like, every single footballer, when they get to that stage, is willing to do whatever it takes to win.
I agree. Like, because, like, when you're, like, even when you're at a hurling game and you're watching it on the hill or whatever, like, there's so much happening absolutely everywhere. Like, when you're watching it on the TV, it's nearly hard enough to follow what's actually going on. Like the game just moves so quickly, you barely even see the ball on the screen. Like it's so much happening left, right, and center. So no, I do agree. Like I think if there could be some sort of extra assistance for referees, I think it would be
And the
hugely
first thing is
helpful.
the timekeeping. And I do want to put that down because that's one thing that I think McQuillan was like, what are you doing here? Like the timekeeping. Jesus Christ. How many times are we going to talk about the time? Like,
Yeah.
perfect example. Galway played Mayo in the LGFA quarterfinals. Mayo scored a point with 20 seconds left to play. And then the hooter went, that's it. Undisputed. Game over.
Yeah. And it makes for so much more excitement as well. Like wasn't it, remember Meath against Cork a couple of years ago as well, like in the ladies football where they get that last minute goal, like literally with a couple of seconds left to play. Like
that's it, because you remember the last attack for Derry. The last attack for Derry, they went backwards with the ball. You're not doing that if there's 5 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah. And like
now, for anybody saying this, I wouldn't implement the LGFA one exactly. I would implement it with the rugby caveat at the end. As in, it counts down, the hooter goes, now you have 2 minutes left until the second hooter goes, and then that's it. But you have one more play. And the second the ball goes out, be it for a sideline or a wide ball or a score, game over. And I think, can you imagine if Derry had one last attack, the hooter went, and the whole stadium knew Derry had one more attack to get a goal? The drama would have been unbelievable. But everyone was in this period where we were like, ref, full time? No. And it's like McQuillan, he literally is in the position where when Derry are going forward with the ball, how is this happening in such a big game where we have a moment where Derry are attacking and McQuillan can literally go, all right, I'm just going to blow the full-time whistle saying Kerry through to the final. Or he can go, I'll give Derry another chance. Why not? How have we got to that stage?
Yeah, like, and to be fair, there was a bit of time wasting and everything else. Like during the injury time, like there was a substitution. I remember Sean O'Shea going off. He took a while to leave the field and everything else. Was there as much time? Like I think it was a minute and a half in the end. Like, look, ultimately in the end, it didn't matter. Like Derry didn't get anything from it, so it doesn't really matter now in the end. But I suppose plenty of chatter about Kerry's cynicism and everything else. We were chatting a bit about it off air and having a chat with Matthew yesterday, obviously in the watch along, and obviously seeing the tweet from Stephen Poacher saying, everyone always says Kerry are footballing greats and they play this beautiful, pure style of football and everything else, and it's all brilliant, and plenty of cynicism about yesterday. Look, what I would say is plenty of people have often said that about Dublin down the years, and there's plenty of cynicism in Dublin's game as well before any Kerry fans try and jump on the bandwagon. I think every team does it. I don't think this is necessarily a new thing from Kerry. I think Kerry teams of old, I think all the best teams have this in their locker, and the dark arts or whatever you want to call it. But what were your takes? I mean, we kind of discussed it there, like some of the challenges and everything else. Like, is that true? Are Kerry a much more cynical team than they are a beautiful footballing team?
I think they have just as much cynicism in them as anybody else. And that's the honest truth. It's not a slight in them, but I think they have just as much cynical players, just as much potentially dirty challenges going in as any other team. And you tell me one team that has won the All-Ireland in the last however many years without a few players that play on the edge.
There is none.
It's not possible. It's not possible. Kerry have them. Make no mistake about it. Kerry have their really tough players. Like the likes of Jason Foley, some of the tackles he was putting in on McGuigan. Shane Ryan nearly took his head off. Like things like that where you're thinking, all right, is he been hit now 3 times just by chance? Or is it just Derry's best player getting battered by the Kerry team? And as I said, look, David Clifford's in for that against every team that he plays against. Con O'Callaghan's in for that against every team that he plays against. Every team has their players that they get stuck into the other lads from. Every All-Ireland team. And all the last 4 have their players. Monaghan. Would you fancy being picked up by Ryan Wiley? Or would you fancy being picked up by Chrissy McCaig or Garrett McKinless? Would you fancy being picked up by John Small? Like every team has their generals in the team that are willing to go that extra mile. And I think Kerry are just as cynical as any other team in the country. It's just like the whole outcry in the media about how we don't talk about it. Yeah, we don't talk about it because we want to focus on the beautiful side of the game. We don't necessarily want to focus on the bad stuff. And Kerry have consistently produced beautiful footballers. That's just the truth. Colin Coopers, James O'Donoghue, Morris Fitzgerald's, even going back to the likes of Mikey Sheehy and players like that. They have a consistent track record of producing breathtaking footballers. And it's much more likable to talk about the David Cliffords and the Shawnee O'Shea's and the brilliant moments that they had, rather than to talk about the fact that Shane McGuigan now is probably walking around not knowing what day it is. So that's the truth. And I think they are just as cynical as any team in the country. That's not an I Hate Kerry campaign. That's just that I don't think you can win at the top now without having a few players that are willing to do that dark arts element.
Yeah, no, I do agree. And look, you can look at plenty of great teams. Dublin's 6 in a row, the likes of John Small and all them lads, you know what I mean? Drew McConnelly, like you see it plenty of times down the years, and this Kerry side definitely no different. Looking at the other semi-final, Dublin won 17, Monaghan 13 points. Dublin getting over the line in the end towards the end of the second half. I have watched this game back. I obviously was at the game in the upper queues. Like I watched it back yesterday morning, and yeah, like some good moments from either side in the game. Like Monaghan probably where they lost the game, in my opinion, was at the start, with all those missed opportunities. They hit the post on a couple of occasions. They hit the bar as well. And it wasn't vintage from Dublin. Like I thought we were very standoffish in the first half. We just allowed Monaghan play their game, and we didn't really press up on them or try and cause any trouble. And then in the second half, like we got over the line in the end. Like it wasn't vintage Dublin, but in the end, a bit like Kerry, it was enough. And look, what was the score a 7-point game? Definitely not. But in the end, look, we get the win, we take it and move on. But as a fellow Dublin fan, what was your opinions on this game?
I thought it was a gripping contest, like absolutely gripping contest, and Monaghan just proved why they're just to be so respected. Like the size of the population, I know that everybody talks about it, but to go toe to toe with Dublin like that, the likes of Darren Hughes, Conor McManus, Carl O'Connell, like just hats off to them, just soldiers. And yeah, like I thought watching it at the start, yeah, you're absolutely right. Missing those chances at the start was huge because you need to take every chance that you get in a game like this. But I thought right at the start, it was very clear that they'd watched the Dublin Roscommon game and they thought, what did Roscommon do really well? They held the ball for long periods, didn't let Dublin build up a head of steam. What did Monaghan do? 63% of the possession in the first half. They hung on to the ball for long periods, didn't let Dublin get, a solid run of possession. And I think that was a clear taking a leaf out of Roscommon's book. And I thought it worked very, very well. It kept them in the game. Like a lot of people were saying, you need to attack. It's like if Monaghan had played 100 miles an hour attacking football against Dublin, Dublin would have blown them away, just like they blew Mayo away. I thought their strategy was actually perfect and it got them close enough. And as you said, it wasn't a 7-point game. Not a chance. They should have brought McCarron in sooner. That's the only change that I would have made to their plan. But apart from that, I thought that they got as much out of that team as they could have.
Absolutely. Like, and I suppose from a Monaghan perspective, like they did push Dublin so well, and even in the second half, like they just weren't lying down. Like McManus started to turn it on. He had a phenomenal game. Conor McCarthy was causing numerous problems for Dublin in the first half as well. And for Monaghan in general, like they were, like there probably was a general consensus coming into the game that Dublin would just blow Monaghan away. And I think from speaking with you, and like I think you had the same opinion as me, like that very much believe. Look, I think we both believe that Dublin would win the game, but it wouldn't be a foregone conclusion. Like, this Monaghan side, they don't bow down, they don't lie down. Look at all their defeats, all their games this year. I don't think they've ever once got absolutely hammered. Do you know that way? Like they've been in every game going down the home stretch, and this was no different again. And like just a few chances in the end probably let them down. But as we were saying earlier, it goes down to the smallest margins and it goes down to the home stretch. And for Dublin, when you're able to bring on McCaffrey, he gets a point. Dean Rock scores 1-1 as well. when Dublin are able to bring these lads on, like that's just such a huge advantage for Dublin compared to Monaghan.
Exactly. And it's one of those things where people very quickly forgot as well that like the last time Dublin and Monaghan played each other was a massive game. It basically decided who would get relegated to Division 2, and Monaghan beat Dublin.
Yeah.
And it was one of the things that people were forgetting on the build-up, acting like Dublin were just going to blow them away. It was never going to be the case. And they put in a fantastic display, Monaghan. And for McManus, like I know that a lot of people are talking up his retirement or his potential retirement. If that is the last time we've seen Conor McManus, how good a performance was it? Like just unbelievable display. He's lost a little bit of pace, and it was clear when you were watching. Like he doesn't have the same pace that he had, but the brain is just undeniable. And he would do. I remember there was one where he turned Fitzsimons. He like let Fitzsimons go over his left shoulder, stopped the ball with his right fist, then took it down. And he just didn't have the pace to get away from him. And Fitzsimons came back and blocked him. I remember that was like, okay, he is actually 36, but the brain is just undeniable, and the class is just undeniable, and his ability is undeniable, and he's genuinely one of the best forwards that I've ever seen. And if you were to make a best team to never win the All-Ireland, this guy's in there every day of the week.
Absolutely. Tommy says here, do you think any Monaghan men are in for a shout at an All-Star? McManus could definitely be in the conversation. I know he came off the bench a good couple of times. Carl O'Connell, as you said before, Conor McCarthy definitely couldn't be a million miles away.
Darren Hughes.
Very good as
Darren
well.
Hughes needed 3 jerseys. Like, what a soldier. Literally, fella was bleeding non-stop throughout the game and just carried on. Like, again, he's 35. Carl O'Connell's 34. He's whipping around like he's 23. Like, they're just quality players. I think all 3 of them are in for a shout of an All-Star. I think Conor McCarthy's in for a shout of an All-Star. I think Micheál Bannigan's form is actually really good. Be very interested to see what happens.
Yeah, like, and I suppose with the fact that obviously Monaghan were in a semi-final, like usually, the semi-final teams will get 1 or 2 All-Stars in there. Obviously this year's championship is a little bit different. Like, so many teams have played so many games, so you might even see some quarter-final teams like get an All-Star in or something of that nature. It'd be interesting to see, no doubt. But bringing it back to Dublin, like, does it show how strong Dublin's panel is that Colin Basquel, who was probably Dublin's best forward coming into the game, he was our most informed forward. He'd scored the most from play in the championship coming into that match. And he was very quiet. He was marked out of the game. He was fairly anonymous. Had a few moments in the game, but wasn't really in it. Was taken off after 43 minutes. But more importantly, Costello turns up. Con O'Callaghan does the business in the second half. Dean Rock comes on and adds something. Kieran Kilkenny comes on for an old Scully in the first half after Scully's black card. Like, does that show how strong Dublin's panel is, that you can have, your best performing forward in the championship have an off day, and yet everyone else turns it on and you still win by 7 points?
Yeah, like, it speaks to the quality that Dublin have in depth. It's magnificent to watch Costello's form in that first half, like 100% shot accuracy, like just ridiculous. Like, it literally, the man is just didn't miss. And Dublin were so efficient in the first half. You were talking about Monaghan like missing their goal chances and everything like that. Dublin, on the other hand, took every chance that they were getting, and that was what was killing Monaghan in the first half. Was they were getting punished for any mistake, and they weren't punishing Dublin for their mistakes. And as I said, the bench, like the substitutions, McCaffrey, like huge impact he always has off the bench. Kieran Kilkenny to be able to come off the bench. Dean Rock had a great impact off the bench, like hugely impressive. And like, I'll be interested to see if, I don't think actually McCaffrey will start the final. As mad as that sounds, I think Lee Gannon's form has been really good at wing back, Small and James McCarthy. Be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. It will be interesting, all right, for Dublin. Like, they do have so many options and everything else, and so many players and such a big panel. Like, I was seeing online that, like, again on Twitter, like when you have a look, and a lot of Monaghan fans were not happy with the refereeing performance, and even in the comments of my own match reaction, there was a lot of very angry Monaghan fans. I think there was a fan that even DM'd me complaining about the referee. I think he might have been a neutral or something. I don't even know if he was a Monaghan man, but some people say they're neutral, but I think in reality, I think we know you don't want Dublin to win. It's okay. But yeah, like, it's thoughts on the refereeing performance. Like, I have to be honest, like, I watched the game back and I was expecting to see loads of bad decisions left, right, and centre. But I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a Dublin fan and I'm biased. I have a few decisions here and there, but I didn't really see anything that would have swayed the outcome of the game, in my opinion.
No, like, being completely honest, I didn't really think it was. There was too many. There's a couple of frees that maybe weren't frees, but that happens in every game.
Happens both
There was
ways,
no decision where I was like, "Oh my god, how is he given that?" There was a few soft frees, but there was one as well. There was one he did in Monaghan's favour that I looked at it thinking, yeah, he's made the right decision, but is that allowed? The one where McCaffrey looked like Conor Boyle had slapped the ball out of his hands and he would give him a 45, and then it came up on the big screen showing the replay, which is something that you should never do. And Hurston saw the replay and went, okay, goal kick.
Yeah,
I'm like,
at least
okay, well,
common sense.
That's smart. Yeah. If he had given that as a 45, then I would have 100% understand some of the complaints. But I didn't see any outrageously bad decisions. I thought it was more the fact that I thought that Monaghan, in terms of general luck, didn't get that bit of luck when they really needed it. Like the likes of the Stephen O'Hanlon pick up off the ground, Conor McCarthy hitting the post. They didn't get that bit of luck when they needed it.
Yeah, like the Stephen O'Hanlon pick up off the ground was like it was one of them. You've seen them go before. Like, the ball is like, it's hard. It was hard to judge whether, because he, like, the camera angle showed him have the ball, but was it bouncing and then he's picking it? Like, it was very hard to tell. But at the same time, something very similar happened to Conor O'Callaghan at the other end, and I'd actually argue he was being fouled in the build up to that. And that's obviously the reason why he
that's it. Like, some Dublin fans think that the ref was harsh on them. Like, it's one of the things where when you're emotionally invested in the game, every decision that is given against you feels like the end of the world. And it's like, you just want to be annoyed at somebody, and the ref is always the easy target, which is why I would never, ever, ever, ever be a referee. Like, I just would never do it.
You can't win, can you? You can't
win. No, you're at best. You are at best tolerated.
Yeah, and the worst part is, if you have one of the best refereeing performances in the history of the All Ireland, you won't be remembered. But if you have one of the worst, like, everyone remembers the Louth and Meath referee from 2010, or the Clare Offaly situation in the 90s, like, that way. Like, everyone remembers those referees, but no one remembers one of the All Ireland finals that didn't have a huge amount of controversy.
That's it. Yeah, it is like, who refereed the 2018 All Ireland final? Who refereed the 2017? Like, do you get what I mean? Good refereeing performances don't tend to be remembered. Bad ones do. And look, in this case, watching the game, as I said, I saw a couple of frees where I was like, that was pretty harsh from both teams. I didn't see anything that would have made me thought this is daylight robbery. Yeah, I wouldn't have saw anything that I thought was daylight robbery. If you want to see Dublin getting lucky with a referee, go to 2011. Kevin McManaman does a double bounce when Dublin had just turned Kerry over and McQuillan missed it. That's lucky with a referee. So that's an example of daylight robbery. But this game, no, not for me.
Yeah, look, and would there be any decision there that would have swung the change of the game? I don't think so. Like, Dean Rock,
what swung the game was Dublin's 3 in a row. That's what swung the game. Monaghan, I was doing the live watch along, and you can, like, this isn't hindsight, me. I'm saying it in the moment. I'm saying Monaghan need to go in front now. They've leveled the game up a few times, but they haven't gone in front. They haven't got that score that puts them in the lead. And that is hugely significant, not just on the scoreboard, but in terms of psychologically, in terms of being, okay, we can beat these guys. We're not just hanging on to them. Now we're leading them. Now we're ahead. And McManus leveled in the 59th minute. And I had Tommaso Flaherty on the pod for the immediate reaction. And he was saying, he made a note of it. 59th minute, McManus levels. 68th minute, Fenton puts Dublin in front. 61st minute, Paul Mannion gets the free. That was the O'Hanlon pickup. 63rd minute, Dublin on fire. And he said Dublin just upped it. In that 5 minutes, they just put Monaghan on the back burner, and Monaghan never came back from it. It wasn't Sean Hurston that did that. That was Dublin that did that.
Yeah, no, there definitely was. Like, and I know, like, I've seen some Monaghan fans giving out about Rock pushing Began at the end. Like, seen a few people saying he punched him in the face. Like, that definitely wasn't what happened. Like, it definitely pushed them in the chest. And look, you know, it's a yellow at best, but it's definitely not a red. You know, like, and I obviously didn't see the incident live, so like I was doing the match reaction and everything else, and seeing, you know, speaking to people.
What happened there? Was that for the goal?
Yeah, so after Dean Rock scores, he just kind of gives Began a bit of a shove. Like, it was unnecessary. There was no need to do it. He just scored a goal. You know, there's no need to do it. But he definitely didn't punch him in the face or anything of that nature. Do you know, that way? Like, and even after he pushed Began, like, Began didn't even react. It's just it's things you see in Gaelic football. You know, like after a goal goes in. I don't think it was you know, like, it probably wasn't maybe the nicest thing for Dean Rock to do, but I don't think it was a red card. Do you know, that way? Like, but there we go. But sure, look, we'll see what happens in the Dublin and Kerry game, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of chatter about the referees and all that crack. But we'll obviously have to wait and see when that comes around. The Tailteann Cup final then was Meath 2-13 down 14 points. A big result from a Meath perspective. Watched this game, was in the Cusack stand just before this game started, so got to catch the whole amount of the game. It was interesting, like, because Down were, in my opinion, by far the better side in the first half. They were 4 points to 1 up. They were looking comfortable. They were taking their chances. Liam Kerr was looking very strong. Pat Havern having a great game. But then that goal, and like, I'll take it. I'll take it back to you, because I haven't seen the game back, and I didn't watch the Sunday game last night, so I haven't been able to see what happened. But what on earth happened with that goal? Because I was at the upper Cusack, the complete opposite end, obviously, to the hill. And I'll be honest, nobody knew it was a goal until about 2-3 seconds after, when the green flag is waving and a few fans are celebrating. It's like, what on earth happened there?
It was like, Meath were having one of those mopey attacks where they're passing the ball left, right. Jack Flynn just decides, do you know what? I'll just have a shot for a point. Why not? And he kicks it, and it kind of looks like he's either kind of half floating the ball into Ronan Jones or half going for the point. He ends up over kicking it if he's going for the ball to Ronan Jones. It hits the post, then comes back down, hits between kind of Pat Havern and Ronan Jones, like both on the leg, and it just goes into net. And it's just the weirdest play I've ever seen, because I was watching it, and it was just like, Niall Kane in particular is the funny one to look at, because it literally hits the post, hits the two lads, and goes in. And he's literally there like, this is Niall Kane. He's literally like,
all right, then. Yeah.
What just happened? Like, he doesn't even do a big reaction. He's just, oh, okay, go. And after that, Down, it just seemed like whatever could go wrong did go wrong. I picked Down to win based off of the fact that they hit 17 wides in Parnell Park, based off the fact that I said, look, their attack suits Croke Park a lot, hence why they scored 8 goals against Laois. And the first 15 minutes, I was watching the game thinking, this is going exactly how I predicted it would go. I'm feeling very confident about my prediction here. And then that goal goes in, and Down just never got going again. And they missed 2 huge goal chances. Like, Liam Kerr missed Blaze one over the bar just before half-time. Ryan Johnston had too much time to pick where he was going to put it in the Meath net, ended up putting it straight at Sean Brennan. And then the second half, Down came out, and Niall Kane slots 2 frees, puts them 2 points in front. I'm thinking, okay, Down might still win this game. And then all of a sudden, Jack Flynn realises that if he shoots, he can't miss. Hits 4 points. Yeah. Jack O'Connor comes off the bench to hit 1-2, and that's a wrap. Meath are Tailteann Cup champions.
Yeah, and look, fair play to me. You have to give them a huge amount of credit, because like coming into the game, probably said the same as you. Like, Meath only have really one way of playing, which is being direct, like kicking into the full forward line. I thought if they kicked the ball into that down full back line, they'd get turned over. They'd run into blind alleys, and they just get frustrated by Down. But actually, you know, Meath showed a lot of variety. Like, I don't know if they ever did actually go direct in the end. They certainly weren't playing how we'd usually see Meath play. They were keeping the ball. They were going through the lines. They were being very smart in possession. And they were taking chances on. They were taking risks on. And I felt like Down at times in the first half and in the second half they were overcomplicating things. They were trying too much. They were, you know, all this crack of what we see with a lot of teams this year, overplaying the ball, too many hand passes. Whereas Meath, where they were taking risks, they were running beyond the shoulder, taking chances on. and they pay dividends to it. And fair play to me, like they were very well set up, organised defensively as well, getting a lot of turnovers in and around there. As you said, Down missed a couple of big goal chances, and had they scored them, it could have been a different game. But at the same time, Meath have definitely come on quite a bit under Conor Rourke in this Tailteann Cup. Like you can clearly see, there's been a big improvement, and in the end, more than deserved winners.
Yeah, no, without doubt. And they always had the potential. And like it was at the start of the Tailteann Cup, I predicted Cavan to win it, and I said if it's going to come outside of Cavan, it's going to be Down or Meath. And then Meath at the time was like, Meath won't win it. They have the potential if they can turn it around. I still didn't think that they would turn it around, but they did. And they turned it around really, really well. And like for O'Rourke to do that, and he handed out 13 debuts.
Wow, yeah.
Like this is what I mean, is that like Matthew said this as well yesterday, like the game against Cork in the Allianz League, where they got a great victory, only 5 of those players started the Tailteann Cup final, which is a crazy turnaround. If you're talking about like, where is it? How many new lads have come into the team? Conor Gray in midfield, Jack Flynn around midfield, Aaron Lynch in the forwards. They've really changed it around, and it's paid dividends. Adam O'Toole on the full back line as well, very impressed by him. Sean Coffey, very impressed by him. Like it's all turned around. Sean Brennan and goal even.
Yeah, like there's been so many changes. Like, and Sean Brennan was excellent with his kickouts. Like he was spot on with a number of them. And like I remember Harry Hogan in the sticks last year, and I thought he'd done very well. So it was surprising to see him lose his place and Brennan coming in. But yeah, like, and Jack Flynn looks a serious footballer. Like I remember being at that game in Parnell Park, and Jack Flynn came on in the second half, and he changed the game. And like obviously it was much closer to the action, and you could see. He's a tall lad. He's a big guy, and like his physical presence around the pitch, you could see it. He's able to take the challenges, and he's clearly able to take his points as well. And like him starting the game, obviously being a late change, like he was instrumental. Like 4 points in total. The goal in the end, to be fair, I think it got credited to him, but I don't think obviously it clearly wasn't obviously his goal. But he was phenomenal. Like he was absolutely phenomenal. And as you said, like. Plenty of other lads in there, like Jack O'Connor obviously coming back into the side, Matthew Costello as well. Like a lot of very, very good footballers in this Meath side that have made the breakthrough. And yeah, definitely a lot positivity for Meath going into next year.
Oh, without doubt, like there's definitely a lot of positivity. And the fact is, as me and you were talking about off air, they've now got themselves into a position where All Ireland Championship football is secure. They can just, as long as it doesn't even matter. Yeah, even if they get relegated from Division 3, from Division 2, they're still in the All Ireland. So just use the league and use the Leinster Championship as a platform to build your team and get ready for the championship. And they'll take huge confidence from looking at how well Westmeath did in the All Ireland this year and how they were right there with every team that they played against. So yeah, I'm expecting some good things from Meath next year.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I think, as I was saying to you, like I think, look, if they were to get relegated from Division 2, it would be a setback. But
I hope they come back. I hope they come back. By the way, like it's one of those things. I watched your video on the Leinster Championship, great video by the way, and you were talking about how Meath have just only reached one semi-final. Like Meath have been in the doldrums as well, and it's one of those things where I'd love to see them come back because they are the other team in Leinster. We need them. We need Kildare to be good. We need we need those two to up their levels to make it a championship. And trust me, if Meath and Kildare manage to up their levels, if Cork up their levels in Munster, I think the chat about provincial championships will actually decrease a lot.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like if you can get me back to the good days. Look, obviously we don't want as Dublin fans, we don't want Meath to beat us, but look, we want competitive games, we want a rivalry and everything else, and we want those good days to come back, because I think we all remember in Croke Park when it was 60,000-70,000 sellouts and everything else, and it certainly would be great to see. But at the same time, from a Meath perspective, like it is important that they've had a lot of turnover in the last couple of years with so many players, and it's so important for them now and for Conor Rourke, I think, to keep these group of players together. get everyone to buy in, going into next season, because there has been so much turnover in the last couple of seasons, and that probably has been a common trend with Meath football really in the last 4 or 5 years, is the amount of turnover that's been there.
Yeah, and like you even talk about it there, like you look at the Meath team that won the Tailteann Cup there. How many lads have we seen over the last few years that are in their mid-20s that have actually been kind of main players for Meath that have been nowhere near the panel this year? Like the likes of Ben Brennan, the likes of Thomas O'Reilly. Like he was in the team in the league, was nowhere to be seen in the Tailteann Cup. Shane Walsh. Like players in the past that have been really important. And I know that there's injuries, and I know that a lot of the lads that I listed are probably injured right now. It's very hard to keep up with who is injured and who's not. But it's very much a case of every year they seem to have, particularly under Andy McEntee, every year they seem to have a new main man. It was Michael Newman one year, then it was Ben Brennan the next, and it was Thomas O'Reilly the next, and it was Jordan Morris the next. And it's like, can we get a bit of continuity, lads? A bit of the same forward line 2 years in a row, maybe. And hopefully they can build something, because I actually think as a forward line, James Conlon was another one that came in and just
remember him,
was gone as quickly as he came. And it's just like, get a bit of continuity in there. I thought Jack O'Connor when he came on looked fantastic. And if they can get like a 6 forwards, that, as I said, because once you get continuity, you start to get chemistry between the forwards. They start to know how to play with each other, and that would only mean good things for Meath.
Yeah, like, and obviously we're seeing Morris more settled into the side as well. Aaron Lynch, looks to be a very good up and coming footballer as well. In fairness, Meath man says here, winning the Tailteann was great for the team. A lot of criticism came from Kildare and Louth fans, 2 counties starved of success and the whipping boys of the All Ireland. And yeah, look, I'm sure Meath fans probably got a lot of banter thrown their way and a lot of criticism thrown their way. So I think you're more.
But that's it. Like we've talked about it. Like we've talked about it. Look at Meath now, Tailteann Cup champions, and straight into the All Ireland next season. And it's one of those things where Louth on paper at the start and throughout the year, like Louth technically, probably had a better season than Meath. But look at what Louth finished the year off with. Kerry ripping them apart limb from limb. Dublin ripping them apart limb from limb. Meath get to win a national trophy in Croke Park. It's not a bad ending.
It definitely isn't. And it certainly will stand to them. You'd hope so. Anyway, going into the next few years, maybe to finish up on down. Like, I mean, obviously disappointment for them. Like, missed a couple of goal chances. A lot of Kilcue lads in the side. It just felt like they panicked towards the end of the game ever so slightly and just ran out of ideas. But look, at the same time, like it's for year one for Conor Laverty, young players in the side, Oren Murdoch, a few under 20 lads coming in. I don't think it's not the end of the world or anything for Down. Like, it's a young side, first year where the Kilcue lads have bought in. As you were saying with Meath, continuity is needed there, and I think the same for Down. And look, they'll be contenders for Division 3 next year, and getting into the All Ireland series for next year is, it's not impossible for Down, and they're certainly not going anywhere. They've got, a good conveyor belt of younger players coming through, and there certainly is a lot of positives for Down despite losing this game.
No, there's a lot of positives, and this year they are a team on the up. They are a team in the right direction, and it's crazy how quickly things changed in 1 year. Like this time last year, Down were in a mess. Yeah. And Laverty coming in has changed them around very, very quickly. So first year there, and he's taking them to a Tailteann Cup final. Next season, I'm guaranteeing they'll have their eye on promotion to Division 2, and they'll have their eye on taking it up another level now. And I expect Down to get better and better over the next few years. They have some cracking players coming through. If they can get the likes of Ryan McAvoy fully fit, if they can get the likes of Quaylon Mooney back, they'll just get better and better. Jerome Johnson is another one. I'd love to see them getting him back to his best. Barry O'Hagan, players like that, get them back in. They can get better and better.
Absolutely. I suppose we'll have a look at some of the ladies' football action then. So we'll start with obviously the game that took place in Austin Stack Park in Tralee. It was Kerry 2-8, Meath 10 points. I caught a bit of this game in the living room after the Dublin match. It was on the big screen, so happy days. And big result from a Kerry perspective. Big win for them. They knock out the All-Ireland champions, and Meath's reign as champions is over.
Was it the living room in town that you saw this game in?
It was, it was on the big screen, which is great to see. Like,
what were you doing in there? Shocking place.
few cheeky ones after the Dublin Monaghan win.
Yeah,
So
sure. That was a cracking game between the two of them, and it was a real game of two halves. Like, it was very clear watching it that the wind was hugely significant in the game, and immediately Kerry took advantage of the wind. Like, you have to say they really took advantage of the wind. They have, the goal from Sheaf O'Shea was definitely fortunate, but then the goal from Niamh Carmody was ruthless. And some of their points, Niamh Ní Cruthóir, Louise Ní Ruaitheartaigh, great scores. And then in the second half, Meath roared back into it. Like, Vicky Wall belted over 3 points that were like, she got a bang in the head and it was like it wound her up. And she just went on the rampage, kicking 3 points. It was like, oh, you made her angry. And she was just brilliant in the second half. Emma Duggan, fantastic as well, kicked over a few lovely scores. They just left themselves too much to do. Kerry only got 1 point in the second half from Hannah O'Donoghue. But even if they hadn't scored, it still would have been enough. And that says it all. Like, Kerry just left themselves too much to do. And they've been great champions. It'll be very interesting to see what they can do next year. Can they bounce back? Because it does have an end of an era feel about it. So they need to bounce back next year. And Jenny Rispin does have the respect of the players. That's clear to see. But they need to bounce back next year.
Yeah, and look, there obviously has been a lot of division, obviously, this year with Avi Nelson obviously stepping away, and obviously since Eamon Murray stepped away last year as well. So it's been a very tricky year, I think, from a Meath perspective. Players going to the AFL and then coming back and everything else. It's been I suppose, not the most smooth year from a Meath perspective, but from a Kerry perspective, like, they blew Meath away, as you said. They've done that, on multiple occasions throughout the league. We saw how good they looked in the league final, and for Kerry, are they the front runners to win the All-Ireland? Like, I mean, they got to the final last year. It's obviously been a long wait. Is it since '93 the last time they won the All-Ireland? So, I mean, look, it's been a long wait, 30 years, and I suppose, like, after taking out the champions, you'd have to have them as one of the front runners now.
You definitely would. The only question is Cork seem to be their kind of kryptonite. Cork seem to have their number. And I actually would say that I'd say Kerry are hoping that Dublin take Cork out in the other semi-final. Kerry have Mayo in the semi-final. I would be making them favourites for that game. Having seen the Galway Mayo game, both teams didn't fire as much going forward. But yeah, hugely looking forward to those games, because Cork beat Kerry in the Munster final, and it was surprising because Kerry have this golden team. And Cork just managed to just have their number on the day. And you wonder, do they just have their number if they were to meet in the All-Ireland final again? But I probably would still lean towards Kerry. I picked them at the start of the year, and we picked them again.
Absolutely. And I suppose from a Dublin perspective, then, what a win that was for ourselves. Obviously, 3 goals and 12 points to 6 points. Huge result from a Dublin perspective. Dominant performance throughout. And yeah, look, I mean, obviously for Dublin, like, we lost to Donegal last year, and I suppose that was obviously on the girls' minds coming into the game, and everything else that went with it. But commanding performance, dominant from start to finish, and Dublin booked themselves into the semi-finals. And look, I'm sure if Kerry are going to be there, we'll hope to be there as well. So
yeah, no, for sure. And like, fantastic performances all around the field. Kate Sullivan with 2 goals. Sinead Ahern still going strong with a goal from her as well. How long has she been playing for Dublin? Like, crazy ability there. Yeah, fantastic. And just like, we hit a spell of 2-5 unanswered in the second half, which just blew Donegal away. Donegal were without Yvonne Bonner, and they were without Geraldine McLaughlin. I think that needs to be said. But they still had the likes of Katie Heron, the likes of Karen Guthrie, the likes of Niamh McLaughlin, Footballer of the Year, and we still blew them away. So I think it's hugely impressive, this victory, and sends out a real statement to Cork, who did get a good victory over Armagh, but I think they would look at the Dublin result and gulp a bit.
Yeah, like, it is going to be such an interesting one, because, as you said there, it was Armagh 2-5, Cork 14 points, and Cork have been an interesting one at times this year. Like, obviously it was a big win for them against Kerry in the Munster final. They've had their ups and downs at times this season. At times they've looked very, very good, and then on other occasions they've looked a little bit flat. So, like, going into that semi-final, it's going to be very interesting. But thoughts on Cork's win over Armagh? Like, a big win, and unfortunate for Armagh. Like, they look like a team that's on the cusp of something. They just can't quite get over the line. in some of these big games and quarterfinals and semi-finals and everything else. But huge result for Cork just to get themselves through.
Yeah, and like the one thing that you have to say straight away is it was in Armagh side without Amy Mackin. Like that's crucial. That's like France without Kylian Mbappe. That's literally their best player. That not even close. Her being missing is crucial. And yeah, like look, Cork played fantastically and they were just led by experience. Like Ciara O'Sullivan was awesome. 5 points from play, 100% shot accuracy, just pure experience, dragging her side through. Darren O'Sullivan also got 4 points. And they had the know-how and they saw the fire and they got through it. And that's hugely impressive from them to go away to the Athletic Grounds and get the victory. Armagh still had the likes of Aoife McCoy, Niamh Coleman, who got the first goal, Blaughin Mackin, who got the second one. Kelly Mallon was still there. That's a tough away day, and they got through it. So hugely impressed by them. And yeah, like they'll be looking forward to the semi-final against Dublin, and be interesting to see how Mayo get on against Kerry in the other one.
Yeah, and speaking of Mayo, obviously narrow result for them, 10 points to 1-6 game that definitely went down to the wire. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, very interesting game. And obviously, as I said, how dramatic can you do it? 20 seconds left on the clock. Shauna Howley fists over the winner. And Mayo going away to Galway and winning against the odds. Sound familiar? There's 2 times this year now that Mayo have gone to Pearse Stadium. They did it in the men's, they did it in the women's as well. Fantastic, gritty display. Conditions were terrible. Very hard day to play football. Galway got the goal from Lindsay Noon quite early. And Mayo managed to be ahead at halftime. Tara Needham slotting over that point just before the break to send them in ahead at halftime. Then the second half, Galway looked like they'd have the last attack. It was 1-6 to 9 points. Galway looked like they were going to have the last attack. Turned the ball over. Kieran Needham won it back from Mayo, and they went down and scored the winner. So as dramatic as you can do it. And they're back in the semi-final now against the Kerry side that put 4 goals past them in the semi-final last year. So they'll definitely have revenge on their mind.
Yeah, like you'd imagine Kerry will be going in as heavy favourites. Like I was watching Armagh against Mayo a couple of weeks ago, and I was thinking like it didn't look at that moment in time that you could see this Mayo side get to a semi-final or get to a final. But fair play, like they dug deep, they got that win, as you said, like right at the death, and they booked themselves into the semi-finals. And speaking of the semi-finals, it will be Mayo who will be taking on Kerry, and it will be Dublin who are taking on Cork. So looking ahead, who's the front runners, do you think, or who's the favourites? Is Kerry? Could be Kerry and Dublin again.
That's honestly what I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, Dublin and Kerry back-to-back.
Should do a double header, put them on the same day. How cool would that be?
Yeah, would be really cool. Yeah,
the
only problem is though, like I think the men's football will probably sell out, but I think the ladies' football as a standalone event will probably get 50,000 maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, just imagine like this spectacle if there was 80,000 people in the stadium. It'd be so good. Like imagine 2 All-Ireland finals in one day for both teams.
Yeah,
like that's the one occasion where you switch the fixtures there, Paul. You swap them around. You make sure that's 2 All-Ireland finals, which would be so cool.
It definitely will be. And look, we'll see what happens. Obviously, those semi-finals happening on the same week of the same weekend as the All-Ireland final, I think on the Saturday. So be very excited to watch those games and see what's going to happen. So yeah, Seamus, thank you very much for coming on. Make sure for anyone who's tuned in to subscribe to On Clithe when you get a chance, and make sure to check out his channel and his page. And yeah, for anyone who's tuned into this, if you could leave a like and subscribe, it very much would be appreciated. And Seamus, thank you for coming on. And yeah, for anyone who tuned in, thanks for tuning in.